Good morning and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Yes, we are 9 minutes late, and yes, we are a man down. Graham McDonald has, shock horror, 2 customers on the yard. How are you doing, David?
I'm good. It's been a tad wet last couple of days, but no, it's a quiet week really. It's just been nice, just reading some books and enjoying myself.
Very wet up here yesterday, and I was tootling around town doing pickups and drop-offs as you do, and I had my daughter with me because it's the school holidays, and we'd gone to the indoor playground on a wet day activity. Got 20 minutes north along the motorway in pouring rain, managed to get out just before the traffic hit, and we get 20 minutes up the road, and she's like, "Where's my bunny?"
Oh no.
And so I had to turn around at Dairy Flat, which you go to Silverdale and turn around, and then head back and drive back to Albany, and then leave again. And of course, when we left again, we were no longer escaping the traffic. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I'm gonna try and lock my camera in. Hopefully that stops it moving around. Maybe.
Yep, yes. That's better. Yes.
Yeah, it was doing the jiggle. Yeah, so that was fun. But it's been wet this week. School holiday obviously has meant that normally there's less on than normal, but there still seems to be a lot going on at the moment and in news-wise. But yeah, it's interesting out there. Any gossip in the Wellington circles?
No, I just think the government's plugging on, doing what it's wanting to do. But at the moment, it just seems usually a little bit quiet.
The government can't be too busy if New Zealand first has the time to put through a bill banning anything other than the New Zealand flag being flown from government buildings.
Yeah, I don't really know what they're thinking there.
As someone pointed out, if an overseas leader dies, they can't put the flag up.
I know it's incredibly myopic, and I think ill-conceived, as are a number of things. I guess one would have to ask, where is the major player in this coalition? Because it seems to be that the two minor parties are grabbing all the headlines at the moment.
Yes. Well, we'll see. Let's get into a little bit of news now. While Graham's not here, let's go and work our way around with some. We'll work backwards today. Not to say that you can't handle the big news on your own, David, but sometimes we like to save some good stuff for when everyone's here to hassle it. So we'll start at the opposite end. Filosa takes Stellantis reins, keeps North American portfolio. Antonio Filosa has officially taken the top job at global automotive giant Stellantis, while also holding on to his previous role overseeing North American operations. The move, confirmed on June 23, sees Filosa replace outgoing CEO Carlos Tavares. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick, everyone, if that's wondering why my voice is a bit odd. Who stepped down in late 2024 after a tenure marked by tension with both dealers and the United Auto Workers Union. Stellantis, which owns brands such as Jeep, Ram, Dodge, Fiat, and Peugeot, was formed from the 2021 merger of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles and Group PSA. Filosa has been with the company for 25 years and was previously Chief Operating Officer of the Americas. He plans to continue leading North American operations while heading the entire company, a dual role that signals a stronger focus on the key market. And that's probably pretty important. The company was doing pretty well in Europe, but North America, not so much. And North America is, population-wise, a wee bit bigger than Europe, to be blunt. And they have a far higher vehicle penetration. So it seems to make a little bit of sense that they would do that.
Yeah, I think they need a little bit of stability in their leadership too. It's been a bit topsy-turvy since the merger, and I don't think they've really settled down and hit the rubber. Rubber hasn't hit the road, as the saying goes, yet. And the North American market for Stellantis is a very important market, as you note. So they need to, I think, hold the European line, because that's the only bit that's making some profit for them at the moment, and develop that North American market again. Otherwise, they won't make it for the next few years.
Yeah, Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about North America, and that they've cut costs on vehicles but raised prices dramatically. Now, arguably, that's exactly what a car company should be doing, but to the point where it's been damaging to the brands there. There's a really interesting documentary by one of the news channels just going through what they've done there. So it'd be interesting to see if Pelosi makes a change. Of course, he's probably been part of overseeing that. So maybe that's his idea all along. Interesting moves there.
If you cut prices on your vehicles, cut the cost of production, but increase the price on your vehicles, people then start asking, well, where are they making the savings? Are they replacing higher quality parts with cheaper parts, and then they put the price up? What's the value proposition here? So I think in the North American market, they love a deal, but they also like their quality. And I'm just going to say that in inverted quotes, because I have to admit, at times, I'm not sure if the American consumer really understands what quality is. They talk about it a lot.
Well, they do. It's called a Toyota Camry.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean that's quality in terms of longevity and low maintenance costs, and that's a fair point. I mean, yeah.
Right. Let's move on to the next one, and this is a bit of a just random story. We don't really put this kind of stuff on AutoTalk, but one of the office didn't, so I figured we'd look at it because I think it's interesting. Local pricing and specification revealed for a Motor 9. So a Motor JK New Zealand, so Cherry, is expanding its lineup with the introduction of the Motor 9 SUV with a super hybrid system to local dealerships in July. Price from $68,990 plus on-road costs, the Motor 9 SHS is offered in one generously appointed variant known as the Virtue. Sorry. So why is that interesting? Why have I pulled up a story about a Chinese car? Well, first up, that would be one of the, if you ignore the MG Cyberster, one of the most expensive Chinese passenger cars sold in the New Zealand market. Unless you ignore full EVs, there are some full EVs knocking on that $80,000 mark, as you'd expect. But petrol-wise, that is there. But the interesting thing is what you're getting for the money, because this is kind of crazy. I've seen this car in China. It is a very, very nice looking car. Some hints of Range Rover and a few other things in the styling. But for that $68,000, you're getting 395 kilowatts of power. Remember when supercars were 395 kilowatts? Now a $68,000 Chinese semi-luxury family SUV is getting that kind of power. It's just crazy. 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds, 169 kilometers NEDC, so call it a bit smaller, of electric range with a 34 kilowatt hour battery, DC charging up to 70 kilowatts. 1,100 kilometers of hybrid range. Isn't it nuts, the value or the money, what you can get for the dollars out of some of the cars that are coming to market now? That's crazy value. Have you ever seen those kind of numbers for that kind of money, David?
No, I haven't. And I read this when you put the story up on AutoTalk. I read it with a great deal of interest, and I think my reaction is much the same as yours. The first thing I noted was the price, and I sort of went, "Ooh, that's kind of pricey for a Chinese vehicle." And then I started to read it, and I looked at the specs, and my mind flipped back to the days when in the 80s, following the HSV. Holden HSV, and they used to sort of brag that a vehicle had 285 kilowatts, and then they broke the 310 kilowatt barrier. I remember when the HSVs went from 195 kilowatts to 215. That's right. Yes, even before then, and people going, wow. And I look at it and think, okay, maybe it won't get the full range on EV. Sorry, the range on full EV that they say. But it's still a hell of a lot better than most other PEVs out there.
A 34 kilowatt hour battery, it would have to be incredibly inefficient to not get over 100. That's a bigger battery. That's a bigger battery than a BYD Shark.
Yeah, I think it'll easily do over 100. I'm thinking probably closer to the 120, 130 range, which is really decent. And then you put on that long range with the fuel into it and its performance, and that is one hell of a car.
There you go. You can replace your Skyline when they hit the used market.
And what's the warranty on it? If I remember right, it's got a good, decent warranty on it as well.
7-year unlimited on the car, and 8-year unlimited on the battery.
Yeah, I mean, that is some package. You have to say the Chinese are really bringing it to the market.
Interesting. We got other vehicles coming. We're sending someone over in about 2 weeks' time to drive for AutoCar, for New Zealand AutoCar, basically the Cherry version of that car, which will be not quite as much performance, but similar, but I suspect quite a lot less money. So, and 7-seater, 8-seater. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes through there. Anyway, now this is an interesting one, just because there's a whole pile of other stuff going on at the moment. We're in the middle of the consultation period for driver licensing changes. Driver licensing wait times dropped to record lows. The time it takes to sit a driver's test in New Zealand has dropped significantly, with Transport Minister Chris Bishop saying the current wait is just 4 days for a full license test and 7 days for a restricted test. A marked improvement from wait times of up to 3 months in some areas. At its peak, more than 80,000 people were in the queue to sit their driver's license test. Bishop attributed the long days to the former government's removal of resit fees for both theory and practical tests in 2023. A movie says led to people being underprepared. We introduced a limit for one free resit for Class 1 driver license tests and removed free resits for overseas license conversions. We also temporarily extended the amount of time people can drive on their overseas licenses from 12 to 18 months. So I think this is good, but I think the devil is in the detail there, isn't it? If you extend driver licensing lengths for 6 months and overseas transfers, and a big part of the work that market does is transferring overseas licenses, you're going to get at least a 6-month gap, I would suggest, of reduced volume, and similarly making charging for additional resits. That is also going to make a pretty clear change to things. The question is whether it's a good change. So you've got people driving on their overseas licenses for longer. You've got people who, and this is an interesting political theory. One of the ideas behind making it easier to get a driver's license is you get more people within the tent, more people operating legally, versus more people just going, oh, well, I'll just stay on my restricted license for another 6 years. Which I have a friend, yes, you, Christian Wood, who has done that for 20 years. Whether the driver's licensing times are a good thing, or whether it's just simply a case of we've now got more people not licensing. I suspect it's very much a bit of both, and more of the negative side than we probably would like. David, you've worked in this space.
Yes, I think the times were coming down. I think that probably the way in which they've been managing it has been a little bit better. The part of the issue that was leading to the long wait times was the high rate of failure at first tests and the number of retests. And I just found, with children going through the driver licensing system and having been involved in the policy side of it, in knowing what was intended, but seeing how it was implemented, I think there was a little bit of, dare I say it, easy for the organisations, particularly when there was a charge to retest, to find reasons to fail people. It's a pretty cynical view, I know, but I think there was a bit of that. You take that out and say, well, actually, let's put it on purely on the data and the driving behaviour. Then you take out a bit of the queue. But you are right. This is a little bit of stats, lies, damn lies, and statistics saying they've been playing with the data a little bit to put it in a better light. I don't know any governments who don't do that, having said that. But I think underlying it all, there has been a little bit of an improvement in the wait times. Driver licensing is a little bit of a hot topic. I'm not sure I agree with Greg Murphy that much, to be honest. When you look at the way in which we have our driver licensing system in New Zealand compared to overseas, the only big difference is the amount of compulsory driver training, professional driver training that required in some European countries compared to here. But our driver licensing system is very similar to what's in Australia and the UK. So I'm not sure where the issues are that people see. I'm not sure what the ghosts are that they see in the system other than long wait times.
So you think the removal of the full license test is fine? Keep all hands on the table here. I didn't do a full license test. I was of an age where we didn't need, you're probably the same. You only did a restricted test and that was it. You, when you went time for the full license, you went along and paid you $25 to the local police station and they wrote you out a new driver's license.
Well, no, I mean, I was even before that. I had to do one test and that was it. And that was what was called a full loader test. And you got your license at the same sites. I did do a provisional and full for motorcycle. And on the motorcycle, you just go and you hand over your fees and you got your full license because they wanted you to get that experience. Removal of the, I'm not convinced, I think, because they were testing different skill levels at the restricted versus the full. So unless they change the way in which that first test is done, I'm not yet convinced that removing the second test is a good outcome.
I also think the second test is good from just a checking level. You know, look, if you've got a system where, and no system's perfect, where someone might get lucky and just fluke it through the test, or they have a catch the instructor on a good day or catch the instructor on a bad day. You know, having it run through two tests, I think is actually helpful with that gap in between. And also, I know plenty of young men who pick up some bloody terrible driving habits between their restricted and their full license tests.
That was the point that I was going to make. The second test, one of the key objectives is to make sure they haven't picked up bad habits.
So yeah, interesting to see that going on there. But yeah, bit of lies, damn lies, and statistics. And I'm not entirely sure that those test times dropping is a good thing. But we will see. Another thing that I'm not entirely sure of is a good thing, and I'm going to get shot in the head here, is funding to speed up market demand for New Zealand's recycled tyres. Investors and innovators are being asked to put their best ideas forward as a substantial investment in funding becomes available to develop the market for tyre-derived recycled rubber material and creating economic value from the country's tyre waste. Tyre Waste, the country's regulated product stewardship scheme for end-of-life tyres, is seeking initial expressions of interest in its inaugural grant funding round. Expressions of interest open in this first round from July 1 to July 29, 2025. Up to $7 million will be available over 3 rounds in a financial year. Tyreways works with the whole industry to ensure tyres are collected for recycling or repurposing. The scheme is achieving a high collection rate and is now focusing on developing high-value, best-use recycling and repurposing solutions for tyres, says Mark Gilbert, Chair of Auto Stewardship New Zealand, which governs the Tyreways scheme. Now, just to be clear, that is a private company that is running that scheme. It is not a trust or anything like this, from my understanding, David, if I've got that correct.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I was involved for many years in the discussions to set up the Tyreways scheme, along with about 14 or 15 other people from all courses of the sector. And so the proposal really was that they would set up a compulsory collection so that they could guarantee a supply of used tyres to make it economical for reuse. And the idea also was that there would be a fee, but then over time that fee would come down as the reuse started to pay for the collection costs. That's the bit that I haven't actually seen. That was the bit that changed between 2013 and 15 when we first had it, and then in the 21 to 23 period when it was revisited and the scheme put together, they had a flat fee for the entire 10 years.
My take on this at the moment is this has been dragging on for so ridiculously long, and whatever's happening needs to move forward. And there's another thing I'd question, and that's making sure the money's spent in the right place. I saw a billboard in the centre of Auckland the other day for this scheme, And I don't get how this scheme needs any form of public billboardy stuff like that. If they're going to do marketing, market in the trade, market it direct to those that are actually making these decisions. This isn't a public thing. It's people who use tires or people who sell tires that are really the market here, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I agree with you on the billboard. That's money misdirected, but I'm going to disagree with you on the timing in a way. The issue was that it was all proceeding nicely until Nick Smith decided that it wouldn't, and then there was no government support for it again, which it was required. It required government support for it to actually get through all of the hoops until Eugenie Sage from the Greens revisited as Associate Minister for the Environment, and then it went through and finally got formalised under the previous Labor government. So to be fair, it's not the scheme's fault. It was really a bureaucratic issue that overtook the intentions of the scheme. And then once the scheme was in place, it's going to take a little while to get the stock. But a key element, and this was one of the key tests around the market wasn't working properly. There was a demonstrable market failure in the way in which recycling of tyres had been done, because it wasn't working and we're getting lots of problems with stockpiles and fires and things like that. But to be able to get the reuse going, so whether it's used for generating heat in cement furnaces where they've got to spend extra money to be able to burn it cleanly, or whether it's they find ways of reusing it as for road making, any other end-use product, you need to be able to guarantee supply. And in a market the size of New Zealand, the only way to guarantee supply was to get a mandatory collection point. They've got the mandatory collection point. I'm going to say, though, I'm not particularly happy with the way in which we now have the Tirewise company working as a private company. It should have really been set up as a trust, because this is in part working on behalf of road users and the consumers of New Zealand with a regulatory backing. Now what we've got is a regulatory backed company whose oversight is now becoming less visible to the people who are funding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, the group behind it, I think, is it 3R?
3R were the consultants that were contracted by MFE to do all of the legwork in terms of the analysis and everything else, but they've also seen an opportunity to become in and to help and to service the company. So 3R is really the company behind it.
Yeah. And look, I'm not saying anything bad about 3R. I know they've done some very good work over the years. But yeah, I think they need to be closely watched as to where this is going to go over the next few years. Similarly, I believe 3R are working towards or trying to work with the government on battery recycling as well.
Correct.
So interesting to see how that goes. Private companies do have a place in a lot of this stuff. We just need to make sure that the ongoing process is managed correctly. I know with Mark Gilbert there as chair, he is a very good operator. So we'll see what comes from that. But yeah, I guess they're into the. They've gone through everything else. They've got the money now. They need to prove what they can do.
Yeah, that's true. To be fair to 3R, the scheme would not be in place without them. They were the ones that really persisted and helped industry get this sorted. But it was a problem, an environmental problem that needed a solution. So I'm not going to write it off at this stage. I'm just going to say, I think the scheme is heading where it was intended. I'm just a little bit concerned now about the visibility going forward of how it's working. But there are some requirements for some of the commercial application of the scheme to remain confidential for commercial reality reasons.
Yes. Right. Let's move on to the next one. And that is something you've probably no doubt had a direct involvement, but certainly read and worked with plenty of stuff on in the past. And that is the all of government vehicle panel. So this is the third phase of this. The last one was set in 2015, though there was a wee update for electric vehicles in 2020. And this is the panel of vehicle brands that government departments can not say buy from, but more easily buy from. These are the kind of negotiated sources for vehicles. Of course, I believe government brands can buy other vehicles, but they have to justify it and have to go through a broader request for pricing, whereas this one they could pretty much just pick from the list and go, I'll have that, thank you, at a fixed price. And again, interesting to see the shift in brands on here in the mix that we've now got. So the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment has released the latest list of vehicle brands approved for purchase under the third generation all-government motor vehicle contract, with a more electrified and diversified offering now available to government agencies. Though now in the all-of-government thing, electric isn't the kind of front line. It's nice to have, but not the must-have that the previous government has set. Effective from July 1, the panel includes 17 brands, including a wave of new entrants. Newly added to the panel are several emerging names, including JQ, Amoda, and Chery, as well as commercial-focused brands Ram, LDV, and KGM. Ram's an interesting one because we had a controversy previously with NIWA buying Silverados for towing their vehicles, but obviously the government's acknowledged now that, yes, some departments do need a big-ass V8 or six-cylinder turbo pickup truck. LDV and KGM. Also on there are Toyota, Ford, Hyundai, Kia, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, Subaru, and BYD. There's the full list. So what's missing? Well, gone are BMW, Volkswagen, Mazda, Suzuki, Isuzu, Renault, Peugeot, and Polestar. And technically Holden was still on the old list, so that's gone as well. MG, Tesla, and Volvo were added in 2020 for electrification. They may still be available through the parallel EV panel. We're not actually sure at this point. We're still working on that. So yeah, interesting list there.
Yeah, I mean, the Holden was still there under the old scheme because of the police requirement for them until they changed that out to Skoda.
Which makes it interesting because who's not on the list now?
Interesting, yes. Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I sort of read that list. I know that distributors fight really hard to get onto that list because it makes it so much easier with purchasing. As you noted, once you're on that list, the ability to sell to government departments is quite a lot easier. If you're not on that list, then you've got to go through it. The departments have to go through a full tendering process, and there's a lot more scrutiny and justification required for purchasing it. And then the distributors have to respond to those tenders with a lot of work. Here, the government puts a call out saying, okay, who's going to be on our government list? And they put a lot of work into getting on that list, but that's a one-off bit of work that they don't have to do on each individual tender. I think when it was originally set up, from an industry perspective, we thought it was a good idea. But I think industry also acknowledged there were going to be winners and losers. And at times, some of them were a little bit puzzled as to who made it on the list versus who didn't.
Well, so it's interesting to see some of what's in there. Basically, the entire Giltrap group is not on there. The Armstrong group has fallen off the list as well. They're all companies that had spots on there previously. As we said, Skoda's not there now. That's not to say that Skoda still won't be doing police cars. That's another separate thing, though. We understand this all of government one. There was that, I can't remember the actual term, but high performance requirement was in there, and certain vehicles within that list are box ticked for that. Yeah, interesting to see there. Now, I'm not going to name names here, but I've heard a strong rumor that one brand that was on there previously missed out going on this time because they have had significant number of staff changes and they missed the deadline. And they're about to have another set of staff changes announced. So watch the news on that as it comes through. But anyway, that one's floating around. Stop moving, camera. Modern technology wonderful until it's not. So yeah, interesting to see there. Always happy to hear gossip, guys. Always happy to hear gossip.
Yeah, I know BMW dropped off the list. Yeah. And I was a little bit surprised to see that Mazda wasn't on the list, but their choice of their model range is a bit narrower now than it had been in the past.
Well, I think BMW were on the list because of the i3, which is no longer around, but also they had the corporate vehicle contract. But that's been held by that we've shifted to a situation now where multiple brands have supplied vehicles into that fleet now. So we'll see. But then, the Prime Minister rolls around the back of an Audi, and Audi's gone as well. Could we see the government shifting to Mercedes-Benz for their VIP cars? Or, maybe BYD Sharks with a canopy on the back. That would be a great VIP vehicle for the government.
Yes. Well, it certainly is an interesting list. And I think I'm not surprised to see a whole range of Chinese marks going on there. I think particularly at this time when the government is looking at value for money and encouraging departments to consider those brands.
Yeah. The only issue I think for the government with that is, the whole total cost of ownership element, what's resale like, and for some of those new brands, quality's not that much of an issue really, because these cars are sold by the time before they come off warranty really. But total cost of ownership could be an interesting one to follow through on.
Well, right. That's how the assessment is done, is on total cost of ownership, purchase price, sales price versus variable costs during the life that the departments hold them. There's five main criteria, including economy rate and safety ratings.
Yes. Comment on our TireWise thing from Phil Haynes. We're into the follow the money stage of tyre stewardship. Mr. Haynes, you've worked before on the All of Government. We've got a comment. Oh, wait, here he is. Unfortunately, it's too hard for many to pursue for too slimmer margins with too late demand for stock. The orders come too late, and therefore it's only worth being on if you can absorb stock peaks and move beyond rental, lease, all of government retail discounts. It was hard at Holden and only worth it if you're trying to grow brand and sales. Yes. Great insight there from our reviewers.
I'm not so sure I agree with him on that. That's, I think, probably a little bit cynical, but there's an element of truth in it. It is quite hard, but yeah.
Cynicism in the New Zealand automotive industry? Never.
Oh, no, we don't do cynicism, do we?
Right.
Nice to hear from you, Phil.
Don't think Graham's coming back. I think he's too busy selling, which is good. So we'll run through a couple of stories, and then we'll go into the big juicy stuff. Right. Stuff motoring brand replaced by Trade Me Motors as partnership goes live. So we've discussed this recently. Trade Me has bought half of Stuff Digital, and part of that is that the Stuff motoring brand has been dropped, being replaced by Trade Me Motors. That's all over their website now. Previously, we talked with Trade Me Motors, and they indicated that no dead set announcement plans as to what the combined merger is going to look like for them yet, but they will always be looking for dealer opportunities to give dealers more exposure for their listings. Of course, always need to run the caveat there. We supply the editorial to Trade Me Motors.
Yeah, I was waiting to see how this would transpire. And the first thing I've noticed now is that when you go on to a Stuff Motors, that website Motors page is just so much better. It's got so much more information on it. You scroll down, there's all sorts of things on it. I think they've done a really good job in refreshing that part of Stuff. Let's see how the rest of it goes.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it lately either. I don't think that's necessarily tied to the Trade Me deal. I think that was already in place.
Yeah, well, whatever. It changed sort of at the same time. So they've obviously done a lot of work on refreshing how they're going to present that.
Oh, no, that's been like that for a while. A quarter of the page is still taken up by property, ironically. But yeah. Interesting. Right. Here we go. Has it? Having to say what a rear quarter panel cost is for all your declared range and going to cost over the period when you launch a car or onto AOG is an example of too hard. Yeah, fair enough. Right. Now, let's move on and flick through a few things. Utes across the Tasman. Let's run through some statistics. So the Aussie market still being driven by Utes. Total of 122,509 new vehicles were launched during the month in Australia this June, according to the Federal Chamber of Commerce, bringing the year-to-date to 608,811. Wouldn't it be nice to sell even a tenth of that in New Zealand? Because we're aiming close to it. FCO Chief Executive Tony Weber says the result highlights both the popularity of dual cab utes and the wide variety of choice available to consumers. Aussie's doing okay. They're doing okay, up 2.4% year on year.
Yes, no, they are doing 122 in a month is a strong month for Australia.
And their EV share is at 7.7%, which is pretty good as well.
Yeah. Mind you, they still have quite a few incentives running over there, both at a state and federal level, which is helping that.
Yes. Auto loan arrears. We've discussed it a few times lately. The latest Centrix credit indicator shows financial pressure in Kiwi households remains high. Vehicle arrears dropped slightly to 5.5% in May 2025, aligning with levels seen a year earlier. Centrix warns there's not a full return to normality, with a proportion of auto loans more than 30 days overdue sitting at 3.1%. Well, this is an improvement from February's 3.4%, remains significantly higher than the 2.4% seen in mid-2024. But the price of loans is up. Original loan is now approximately $22,700. Now, they say that's because of an upward trend in vehicle finance. I disagree. I think that is because we have seen the used import market be slower than the new UK market, which would suggest to me that you are going to end up with a higher average loan value because the average vehicle being sold is of a higher price, simply by skewing it towards the new market. So, interesting statistics there. Now, what about the New Zealand market? Well, used import registrations continue down for the month. Graham is going to turn that around as a one-man band right now because he's selling a car. Used import registrations fell to 7,083 units in June 2025, a 14.4% drop compared to the same month last year, when 8,271 units were recorded. Passenger vehicles down 13%, commercials down 37.9%. Twitter remained dominant, and in the used commercial market, Twitter remained dominant. Sticking with the hybrid skew very strongly, Aqua continues to lead, followed by the Prius and the Corolla, most of which of the Corollas that come in from Japan now are hybrid, followed by the Nissan Note and Honda Fit. Highest the top commercial, as always, followed by the Nissan NV350 and Hino Dutro. So that is that year to date down 11%. So not fantastic.
No, and I think it's both a combination of people not wanting to spend money and the cost of buying the units over in Japan is higher at the moment, so having to pay a little bit more for the vehicles this end. But Graham can give more detail on that if he joins the show.
He's selling a car. He's not going to jump out of selling a car to come and talk with us.
No, and good on him.
Damn right. Now, investment boost creates bounce back in June new car sales? ? Look, we've got lots of stats here, but we'll go with the MIA ones that have come out recently because they're usually a little bit more tidied up than the provisionals we report earlier in the week. Second best month in 2025 at 11,862, in an increase of 26% from June 2024. Encouraging increase on the 10,251 in May. MIA Chief Executive Amy Wiley says the link between the June increase and the investment boost announced in May cannot be discounted as a factor in the latest figures. So a solid month there. RAV4 continuing the passenger car market. Ranger, the top ute, as you would expect. But interestingly, we saw a big jump from BYD. Combined sales of BYD of over 800 units, 400 BYD Sharks sold. That is, a big number for a third party as such. It's very rare that, look, Ranger and Triton will do those kind of numbers. It's very rare to see Ranger or Hilux do those kind of numbers. It's very rare to see, say, Triton or Navara do those kind of numbers. For a non-Ford or Toyota, that is a big delivery. And I understand there's another lot going out the door this month. So,
I noted three things. Of these sales. I'm going to agree with Amy in that you can't rule out the link between the funding and the extra sales. How strong a link there is, I'm uncertain, because the primary point that I'd like to make is this June, I think, has seen us go back into what I consider to be a traditional field days June outturn, because the June month always tends to be up, and if it's up, it indicates, I think, that farmers in particular are starting to spend some money.
$10 dairy, $10 a kilo dairy solar payout.
Yeah, it's quite good in that sense. So I think in that sense, first and primarily, the June figures benefit from the field days. Secondly, the government funding was a boost, and then I think thirdly, the BYD shark numbers, when you look at those commercial utes, that we would consider that, well, I would personally have considered that an outlier. But I'm not surprised, because they've come up with a really good product and people like it. And so every now and then, I think you would have seen the Triton get close to those numbers, but usually when they've done a lot of pre-reg and sales deals and things like that. So for the shark to hit those numbers, I think that's a good sign. And what I'd like to see is those numbers continue for a little while to see how strong. But I would not be surprised to see the shark continue to be in third place for a few months yet.
Yeah, especially if it's now in the all of government contract. There have always been a lot of government fleets supposedly waiting for electrified utes. Well, there you go. Phil says, yes, Junius Field Day is not investment boost. So,
well, no, I don't think Phil knows whether it's the investment boost or not. Sorry, Phil, I'm going to disagree with you there. It is. My experience is that every time the government has come up with some sort of incentive, it has had an immediate link to sales. How much, though, it's hard to prove. So I think the investment boost is a factor, and I think Amy is correct in that regard. And I think Amy would know, because she will have her ear to the ground with the distributors, and the distributors would know.
I think it's the investment boost supplier. I think the dairy thing is more of a thing.
Yes, correct. I think the field days.
It's all a combination.
Boost is the biggest. The field day boost is the biggest bump for June.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see on that. Now let's go into the last story of the day, and this is I'm going to be delicate with the story because we're still getting all the details locked down, and I also don't want to dump on someone who's probably already having a pretty bad day. And that's this. $1 million Ferrari plows into two parked cars in Newmarket. A near $1 million Ferrari SF90 has crashed into two parked cars on Maranui Avenue in Newmarket over the weekend. One of the cars hit was a 1995 Civic EG8, which its owner described as a cherished project car. I'm loving all this story. This is the other papers of this now. The focus is more on the Civic than it is on the $1 million Ferrari. An Audi parked nearby was also damaged. The Audi is secondary as well. Video shared on social media shows the black SF90 mounted the curb before hitting the Civic, which then collided with the Audi. You can see this triple video play. You can see the rather damaged Ferrari. And then of course, Maranui Ave is down behind all the various dealerships there. Luckily for it is, there's so many dealerships down there. It's hard to exactly work out who it is. Though we know. The incident occurred around 2:20 p.m. last Saturday with no injuries reported. AutoTalk understands the Ferrari was being driven by dealership staff as part of a trade-in assessment. At this stage, we're choosing not to name the dealership or the staff involved. But we will say Ferrari concessionaire Condor Staff Services have confirmed they were not in possession of the vehicle. The Ferrari SF90, a plug-in hybrid supercar, retails for around $1 million in New Zealand. There's a pre-crash market value of $900,000. Police are dealing with it. Now, you bastards are brutal. Absolutely brutal. Because, and I've had to tweak this video to not be too clear as to who is being called. Yeah, here we go. Poor Honda owner. Honda is one of the longer life brands. Owners cherish and fix almost like a classic. So that's halved the life of the Honda. Yeah, that car there is actually, apparently is like mint, and it was a bit of a project car. But anyway, this video is now going around, and I understand it is dealers that are the perpetrators, and the person involved is also a dealer staff member. So you'll have to tell me if the audio works on this. I have trimmed it as much as I can to avoid being too obvious as to who it is. So anyway, it's doing the rounds.
Yeah, that would be me. How can I help?
Oh yeah, so they're a coupe, are they?
They are a good, correct? Yes, the only coupe that we offer at the pitch.
Right, so that's EV as well, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I'm just tossing it up between something like that and maybe SF90. What's the similarities?
Very different.
Very different. Okay.
90's the
well, look, what sort of money's on one of those?
Nearest next to difference, $1 million. Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Don.
Don? And where are we calling from, Don?
I'm from Greymouth.
From Greymouth.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, lovely car, but probably out of my budget. You wouldn't know where I could get any sort of a damaged one at all.
I don't think I gave away too much there, but people could probably work it out. Yeah, you bastards are brutal. If that was a dealer doing that to another dealer, you're hilarious, but you're brutal.
Yes, yeah, that was a pretty good takeoff. I read the story and remembered several years ago, my son had his car parked on the side of the road, and his flatmate, who had a WRX, was parked behind him, and a guy came up our street and missed the corner, took it wide, hit the Putakawa tree, and then smashed into the back of the WRX, which lurched it forward to smash into the back of my son's car. Now, my son's car was just an old Toyota. It wasn't that very much, but his flatmate's pride and joy was written off both front and rear by a driver who was double the limit, doing about 80 kilometres an hour on a 50k zone, with tyres that were half flat.
And we are in no way suggesting these situations are in any way at all the same.
No. I was just remembering what it felt like to see cars that was somebody's pride and joy written off. I have some sympathy for that Honda owner, because and the Audi.
I just adore the fact that so much the talk has been about this pride and joy, probably $3,000 Honda Civic sedan, and then the other side is you brutal bastards, whoever it was doing that to the poor guy who's probably having the worst week of his professional life. So, yeah, two sides to that. Anyway, that's it for us this week. Ending on a funny note. We went backwards because we were hoping Graham would turn up, but no, David, you did a sterling job. Phil Haynes chucking in from the side. Yeah, it's been an interesting one. It's been an interesting. Anyway, we will be back next week. Maybe. I'm technically on holiday with my daughter next week, but we'll see how we go with that.
I'll be away for the next 2 Fridays. We're going to head away in the caravan up to the Winterless North, Richard.
Oh, lovely. I'll have to swing by and say hello.
Mm.
Not sure your caravan will fit up my driveway, but yeah.
Interesting to get the comments from Phil. That was quite good input into the show.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Well, if you are like Phil and have some opinions or knowledge, you can always comment down on this. It actually pops up on our screen sometimes here, and we will do what we can to bring them into the show. But anyway, good luck selling your car, Graham. We salute you for committing to the sale, and we'll catch everyone next week for the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap.